YouTube मध्ये पहा बरं किती जण जॉईन झाले आले बरं. Wage ma'am, I think we should start now, no?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning all. I, Dr. Megha Savangikar, on behalf of Chemistry Department, welcome you all to this expert session. Now, chief guest of today's expert session, Ms. Dikshya Swain, then Head of Chemistry Department, Dr. Prajakta Waghe, my dear colleagues and my dear students. A very warm welcome to all of you for this expert session on applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning organized by Department of Chemistry. I welcome you all for this session. Now I would like to request Dr. Prajakta Waghe ma'am, HOD Chemistry Department, YCCE Nagpur, to say a few words on this occasion. Ma'am, please.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Good morning, one and all. First, I would like to say thank you, Ms. Dikshya Swain, for accepting our invitation for expert session on applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning organized by Department of Chemistry YCC Nagpur for our first year students. Thank you for taking time out and being online here. Today's resource person for expert session is Dikshya Swain, Robotics Software Engineer at Robotics USA. Dear faculty members and participants from different sections of BTech first year, same one, and Dr. Prajakta Waghe, Head and Associate Professor, Applied Chemistry Department, YCCE, will take this opportunity to welcome you all for exploration, application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Actually, I would like to say something regarding this expert talk. I talked with Dr. Savangikar to organize one expert session from abroad subject expert. Madam discussed with Ms. Diksha regarding expert session by her for our students. Diksha immediately accepted our invitation, and today we are lucky we will be looking at Diksha to hear her about applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I would like to request you students also, we would love to hear from you at the end of today's session. If you have any question for our resource person, please feel free to ask. We will take 3 to 4 questions at the end of session and madam will try to give answer to your questions. After completion of question answer session, the student participant who attended expert session will have to fill feedback form for which link will be sent to you. Once again, welcome you all for expert session and I hope all of you will enjoy today's session and will be beneficial to you also. Thank you. Now I hand over further proceedings to Dr. Savangikar. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome Ms. Dikshya Swain on behalf of Department of Chemistry today. Now, Ms. Dikshya Swain, she has completed her BTech in Instrumental and Control Engineering from SRM University from India in 2015. And she has completed her Master of Science in Robotics Engineering, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, Worcester, in 2017. And she is now presently she is working as a robotics software engineer in RUG Robotics Houston, Texas, USA. And since November 2020, she is working there. And she worked as an advanced software engineer in Honeywell Integrated St. Louis. And she has completed her certification on Six Sigma Green Belt. Now we have such a talented and young dynamic personality here today. So I request Ms. Diksha to deliver her talk and enlighten our students in this area, because artificial intelligence and machine learning is now a very important subject. Everyone should know it, and we are very eager to hear from you about the same. Now, but before that, Diksha, I want to give some instructions to our students. So, dear students, if you have any query or if you have any question, you just note down it during the session only, and then you write it in the chat box, and every question will be put to the to Diksha ma'am for the answer. And feedback link will be sent on the in the chat box only, and submit the feedback on this session immediately before leaving the meeting. Thank you. Now I request Diksha ma'am to start her session.
Sure. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. I'm really excited to talk about applications of AI and machine learning. I'll share my presentation. First of all, I'm just recovering from COVID this week, so please bear with my voice, and I might be coughing throughout the presentation, so I'm really sorry for that. Yeah, I will start. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
It not.
Is it visible?
No.
It's not letting me share.
Oh,
Okay.
is it? Yes, yes. Now it is.
Oh. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we are going to talk about the applications of AI and machine learning in this session. This is a small agenda of what I will be talking about in the next 1 hour, starting with a brief about myself and what I have achieved so far in my career. We will start with what is AI, machine learning, and deep learning, and I'll try to cover a bit about the relationship between all the blanket definitions in this area. And finally, we will talk about the applications of AI and machine learning. There are hundreds of applications for AI in today's world. I will be covering 7 important application areas with some examples. So feel free to note down your questions, and I'll be happy to answer anything at the end of the presentation. So starting a bit about myself, I finished my bachelor's in instrumentation and control engineering from SRM University, Chennai. During my bachelor's, I got an opportunity to do an internship in Russia in December of 2014. This is where I actually got introduced to robotics, which is what I'm working on now. So my interest and my enthusiasm for robotics started during this internship, followed by my graduate degree that I pursued from Massachusetts in United States. Uh, During my time in I pretty much learned everything I know in robotics from there, starting from the basics of robotics to the control, dynamics, and different aspects of robotics. After graduating in 2017, I joined Honeywell Integrated, the warehouse robotics division in Honeywell. I spent there about 3.5 years and got to work on various industrial robots and uh, led the simulation team over there in designing simulations for the robots as well. In November of 2020, I joined Rugged Robotics in Houston, Texas. Rugged works on construction robotics, so we deal with different kind of mobile robots for that are used for construction sites. I'll talk a brief about what Rugged does, and then we'll start with our current topic. So, Rugged Robotics is a construction robotics company based off of Houston, Texas. And our current product is a field layout robot that basically prints building layouts on the unfinished concrete floors. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about, what our current robot does. So, this is a 2D diagram of a building, construction building. This is how it looks like, a CAD 2D of the building. And the current process, which is the layout process that exists, is a very, very manual process that generally people use, like measuring tapes and chalk line to draw it on the floor before any kind of construction starts in a building. So that's a very manual, unpredictable, high risk process that people currently do. So my company, Rugged Robotics, is replacing that with autonomous solution. As you can see in this video, if it's visible. So the black prints on the floor is what our robot prints. And this is the robot with two sensors on the top that actually looks at two orange towers, and that's how it knows like where it is in a real world. And the red one in the front is the actual printer with ink that prints on the floor. So my work at Rugged Robotics involves working with sensors, localization of robots, and like implementing AI, machine learning, figuring out different applications for robots. Before starting with what AI is, I would like to talk about how AI came into existence, like what happened in the past decade or two that AI became so popular now. So, in the past decade, something really important that has happened is we have a lot of social media now. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We have a lot of social media that people use. And what comes out of the social media is a lot of data about yourself, your name, address, you post pictures, whatever stuff you're doing online, everything gets stored. You must have seen like every time you visit a website, is it always asks you like, do you allow cookies? The cookies are basically the information that gets stored for your like online session that you're doing. So now we have all this kind of virtual data, digital data that's available. So all the researchers came up with ways of using this data in some way. So that's how big data came into picture. So big data is the technology of handling this data, this huge amount of data, that's digital data that's available, and making them into buckets of like more usable form that can be used by researchers. And data science is that division of computer science which actually helps in analyzing this data. So now someone needs to like tell like what these data are. So that's what people with data science degree do. They analyze this data, they make sense of the data so that it can be utilized by researcher. And AI is the technology of using this data and feeding this to like dumb machines and making them intelligent. So the process of like making machines or robots as intelligent as human beings by using data and teaching these machines, this entire process is called artificial intelligence. And today we are going to talk about AI, briefly and talk about like what has happened in the past decade and what are the applications, like where AI is getting utilized now. So let's jump into what is AI. As I talked about, it's the ability of a computer to basically learn from a tremendous amount of data to solve certain problems that originally could have been solved by human beings. Now we are trying to incorporate this intelligence to machines. So this entire process is called AI. Now, how do you use this data and teach machines to do what I have been talking about, right? So there are three methods of learning that exist in AI and machine learning world today: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Now, what is supervised learning? Now, I was talking about all this data that gets collected, and you get all these buckets of data available now that you want to feed it to some machine to teach it about something. So, what does that entire process looks like? So, in supervised learning, you basically take this data. Say you have like image data of different animals like cats and dogs and everything. So in supervised learning, we manually categorize this data, we label this data, we say like, hey, this picture is a cat and this picture is a dog. And we feed this data to a machine learning model or like artificial intelligence AI model. We feed that data into it. We tell it like, hey, this is cat and this is dog. And we expect the output to be that the machine detects itself, saying like, okay, this is a cat and this is a dog. And in future, when a different image comes into picture, the machine should be able to distinguish and say like, hey, this is a cat image. So that is an example, a very, very simple example of supervised learning. So you basically feed in labeled data set to this machine learning models, and there are some predicted outcomes that's expected out of this, and it's able to do it. So this entire process is supervised learning. Now there is another way of teaching machines as well, which is unsupervised learning. This is where you give unlabeled data and let the machine decide, like let the machine make decisions of like what it thinks this thing is. So you can give like different colors of balls and let the machine decide like, oh, this is a set of balls, or let the machine like figure out some distinctive features between all this data that you have provided, and it comes out with its own outcome. Excuse me. Excuse me. And reinforcement learning is a bit more advanced. That's basically where you tell something to a machine to do, and the machine gives an output. It gives some kind of output. Now you rate the output based on, you give it a reward or you punish the machine, saying like, hey, this is a wrong decision. So this decision that the machine took is wrong. Now you feed this knowledge back to the model again and iteratively keep doing this loop of reward and punishment. And finally, the machine learns itself to make a decision. So that's reinforcement learning in very layman language. So these are the three learning methods in machine learning that exist today. A very good example of actually of reinforcement learning is if you guys have heard now about ChatGPT. So that's an example of reinforcement learning where it is asking you for answers. Like if you ask a question, it's giving you an answer. Then you decide whether the answer is correct or wrong. You give another answer. So they collect all this data, that interactions that you're having with this virtual chat platform, and that's like a training data they are collecting and feeding it back to their model. Now let's talk about the relationship between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. These are like all blanket terms, right? So AI is the bigger, as I talked about. So that's the biggest blanket term for this making machines intelligent as human beings. So that entire technology, that entire ability of, or like the technology to do that is AI. Now, machine learning is a subset of AI where you basically have mathematical models which you give, like, you feed data to this mathematical models, you train them, and you expect certain predicted outcome out of it. So that's machine learning. So the way of teaching the machines, the methods that we use for teaching the machines is machine learning. Now, what is deep learning? Deep learning is another smaller subset of machine learning where basically instead of mathematical models, we try to mimic a human brain. So, brains, if you are familiar with neural networks, you must have studied in biology. We have neural networks in our brain, or we have neurons in our brain. And a neural network is basically a mimic, like scientists have mimicked a human brain into a mathematical model like a network. And that's what gets trained in order to get like a more intelligent machine. So that's deep learning. And data science is the discipline that uses all these technologies and methods to analyze and extract information from all this data. Now we have like all this vast amount of data. So in data science, we use all these methods to extract information so that the data can be utilized by machine learning or deep learning models. So that's sort of like an overall area or discipline that handles data. It's the same thing as I talked about. This is a pictorial version of how a machine learning model looks like. It's way complicated than this, but you feed in data to the machine, you train the machine, um, you feed this back to a model, and a predicted outcome comes out of it. Versus a deep learning model uh, is where they mimic how a human brain works. So it has multiple layers, and certain data gets inputted on one side, and you train the model through a deep neural network, and you get an expected output from it. Now let's talk about applications of AI and machine learning. That's the main topic for this presentation today. So there are hundreds of applications of AI and machine learning today. I'm going to cover 7 most important applications which are currently used in industries, and people are actively working in each of these areas. Starting with image processing, robotics, data mining, voice recognition, video games, text analysis, and healthcare. So I'm going to give small examples of each of these categories just to like familiarize everyone with like how actually we are using AI and machine learning in day-to-day life. So let's start with image processing. So what is image processing? Now I keep talking about like all this data that's available in this world now that gets utilized for training machines. Now the data, when it's image, now you have to process this image. Now something needs to understand what's there in this image, and that data, that image data, when gets utilized as an input for a machine learning, the processing of that image data is called image processing. So basically, it converts an image into a digital format and performs certain applications, certain operations on it, and you finally get an output. There are a lot of examples of image processing. I will start with a small example of, um, as you can see in this video, Facebook research uses image processing. So every time you try to upload images on Facebook, when you try to tag someone's face on the picture, you always will see like a suggestion box that pops up. Like Facebook tries to suggest you, like, oh, this might be Diksha, this might be Abhishek. It tries to suggest you. And after you tag like 5 pictures in an album, on the 6th picture, it will start predicting like the correct name for that face. So that's in the background. It's a machine learning model basically, which takes in like all these pictures that we keep posting. They train their machine learning models based on the data that we are providing. We are tagging the picture saying like, this is Diksha. So now the model knows that how Diksha looks like. So it collects all these images I posted throughout the year. Now it knows how Diksha looks like in different scenarios, and it trains the model to eventually, from a crowd of people, it can predict how Diksha looks like. So that's basically how Facebook has been training images, using images for automatic tagging. Another very good example of image processing is face IDs that we use on our phones for unlocking the phones, basically. So this is how the Face ID thing looks on an iPhone. So when you get the new phone, it always asks you to click pictures in different orientation, different angles, and so you have to like click pictures in various scenarios, and then it stores those images. It feeds those back to its offline machine learning model, and now every time you're trying to open your phone, no matter if you're under a blanket or you're inside a dark room, it's still able to detect your face. So that's also a very good example of facial recognition. Now, a very good example of image processing, this is sort of like an image processing plus robotics example, is self-driving cars. So this video is a video of a self-driving car by Waymo, which is the driverless car division of Google. And you can see like there are so many sensors on top of the car. Those are like 2D, 3D cameras, and there are like lidars on top of it. So it sort of fuses all this data and tries to predict what the outcome will be. So how all this work is, these car companies, they literally spend months just driving around and collecting all this data, and now they have millions and millions of like road data that they collect, and they feed this data to their offline deep learning models to in order to teach the car what decisions to take. So you will see like when it's driving along, you will see a car comes, it detects a car. Now when the door opens, now it knows that, oh, it needs to move around the car and go further. Or like if it sees a stop sign, it stops. If it sees a person moving, it stops. So all this training takes place with using millions of image data that gets collected. Now, coming to the second application, it's robotics. Again, there are so many companies now which use data, machine learning, AI for different applications. I'm going to show two examples here. One is a floor cleaning robot. So this is iRobot's Roomba that you can see it has a camera on top of it, and it basically sees around and it sees like there is a sofa, so it doesn't need to like hit the sofa, so it needs to figure out how to move around the sofa. So this is also an example of image processing plus robotics where it's taking decisions based on the camera data. The next one is the video you can see of Honeywell's sorter induction robot. This is actually a robot I worked on a couple of years back. So here there is a camera on top of the robot where it actually looks at the box. So it has to put the box in a way so that the label is on the top side. So it has to flip, excuse me. So it has to flip the box in a way that the label is visible before it goes on the conveyor belt. So this is also a very good example of how robotics is utilizing AI and machine learning for different applications. Now there are hundreds of robots available now. There are some healthcare robots. There are different food delivery robots available now. There are different hotels. In hotels, they have robots now to like serve food and everything. So there are a lot of examples of how AI and machine learning is utilized in robotics these days. Now the next example is, the next application is data mining. Data mining is basically a method of analyzing hidden data patterns in data. So there are like a lot of data available these days. Now you need to have the right kind of data in order to predict something. So where do we act? What are some good examples of data mining where AI and machine learning is being used? One is anomaly detection. So what is anomaly detection? It's basically finding out odd man out from like a group of similar things. So one good example of this is in finance industry. So if you use credit cards, sometimes when if there is like a fraudulent charge on a credit card, the bank generally texts you or sends you like an email saying like, hey, can you like can you check if this charge is like by you or someone else is using your credit card? Now how do bank realize like what how this charges is like how do they figure out like if that's a fraudulent charge or not? So basically they collect all your information of how you are spending, like your spending pattern, like how you are spending money, like how much money you are spending, what things you buy. So if there is something out of ordinary that happens, they just send you an alert. So that's one good example of how data mining uses machine learning. The next one, very common one, is prediction, data recommendation that takes place. So on websites like Amazon or Flipkart, when you buy certain things, you'll always see like it starts giving you suggestions of like, oh, you may like this book because you bought Dan Brown's Lost Symbol. So it starts suggesting you Dan Brown's every other book that exists. So that's also one good example of data mining where they're storing all this information about what you're buying, and they are making a prediction of like what you might like, and they start giving you suggestions. This happens on Netflix as well, on Spotify as well, where whatever kind of movies you start watching, it starts suggesting you similar movies in that genre. Now, the suggestions will be different when you look at your friend's Netflix. It will be a completely different suggestions on his one based on what he watched. So, data recommendation is basically another application where we utilize AI and machine learning. Now, the next application that we are going to talk about is voice recognition. This is also a very common thing that we use day to day. We don't realize that it's AI and machine learning that enables all this. So that's Alexa or like any virtual assistant, like a Google or Siri or Alexa. So we always give a voice command and it does something. So if you think thoroughly about it, it's when you're talking something, so it needs, how does it like listen and understand anything? So basically all these machines have a backend like machine learning algorithm or a deep learning algorithm, like a platform, like a trained model that's running. Excuse me. So the input data for these models are voice commands or voice commands are basically the input data that those are given, and based on the voice command, it recognizes what it said and it does certain activities. Like you say, "Hey, turn on the TV," or "Open the gate," or "Play this music," and it does that. So those are like very, very nicely trained deep learning models that basically take input voice data and give you whatever you are asking for. The next application we are going to talk about is video games. Again, millions of games available. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. So there are hundreds of games which currently utilize machine learning in some aspects to make games more intelligent. So this is a very good example. Google's AlphaGo. So AlphaGo is a very old Chinese game and this person you see in this picture, he was the world's champion in AlphaGo, and Google came up with a virtual AlphaGo game, and it trained its game to like play against each other, and it trained that game and made it more intelligent. So there was a game that occurred between this world champion KG and the Google's AlphaGo, and Google's AlphaGo won that match. So this is a picture of when he lost it. So this is a very good example of how people these days are generating games and they're training and teaching for the game to like play against each other and making them more intelligent. Now, the next one is Pokemon Go. Everyone played Pokemon Go a couple of years back. Now, there are Pokemon Go uses classifiers, machine learning classifiers, to predict the results of the match. So everyone plays game and they keep collecting all the data when you catch a Pokemon or when you're like roaming around, going to different places. You're catching Pokemons. So they collect all this data and they try to generate a predicted results based on what kind of pattern you're, how you're playing the game and everything. Next application we are going to talk about is text analysis. Now, for this, the input is text data or uh, any way of obtaining any kind of information from input text data and like bringing some intelligent decisions is text analysis. One very good example of text analysis is spam filtering. Now, every time you get an email in Gmail, sometimes it automatically delivers it to the spam folder, and sometimes it puts in like update or promotion tab in Gmail. So, have you ever wondered like how it decided that it's a spam email and sent it to the spam folder? So that's basically a machine learning model or a deep learning model that gets trained for detecting certain like keywords in the email or certain way the email is written or some different or unique characters in these emails to decide that it's a spam and it sends it to the spam folder. There are many cases where some important emails go to spam as well because they might have certain characters for which Gmail thinks that it's a spam and it sends it to the spam. But yeah, overall, like it's a machine learning model that basically decides that. Next is this is a very good example, sentiment analysis. Every time you buy a product, you give a review, or like you had an experience, you went to a restaurant or somewhere. So you give like a review or a feedback to it. Now there are like 200, 300 feedback about the same product. Now no one manually goes through them and reads them to figure out the overall analysis of the product. So they generally use like a machine learning model that basically goes through all this and predicts like, okay, generally like people are probably happy about this product or sad about this product. So that's a small example of sentiment analysis and how machine learning is used in that case. Now, coming to one of the most important application of AI and machine learning, healthcare. Now, I can talk on and on about like where and how these days, like everything, people are utilizing healthcare. People are utilizing machine learning, deep learning in healthcare, and how it has become so advantageous in today's world. Uh, we will talk about like couple of applications here. So these are some AI benefits in healthcare, starting with early detection of diseases, diagnosis, decision making, treatment of the diseases, end of life care, research, which involves drug research as well, training of medical professionals, and overall health keeping well. Now, we will cover a couple of examples. I tried to accumulate some examples or some applications like currently AI is being used. The first one is for medical diagnosis. So I read it somewhere. It was a very nice thing. Someone mentioned is AI is really good when certain thing has been done by human beings 10,000 times and the 10,000 after 10,000 times, like when you're trying to make a machine do it, now you have like all this data available with 10,000 tries, and you can like feed all this experience data to a machine and teach it. So that the next time the machine can predict it correctly. AI is not that good when it's something new and you don't know like what the predictive output will be. So in that case, it's kind of difficult to like feed in correct data to this machine to teach and make it intelligent. So MRI scan analysis is a very good example of that. MRI CT scan we have been doing for ages now, right? And it generally takes a doctor to analyze it. It generally takes them a couple of hours to analyze the MRI scans in order to like give a diagnosis. So MIT came up with this deep learning model called voxel morph, which takes seconds to perform MRI analysis apparently, and it's not like 100% perfect model that gives you everything and it replaces doctors or anything, but it's definitely in the right direction, and it has definitely been very helpful for doctors these days of like at least getting a first input from a deep learning model before like them spending hours to trying to analyze the scans. But yeah, this is a very good example of you have like millions of MRI scans available to train models to provide this data to deep learning models to researchers who are working on these deep learning models in order to make them more intelligent. The second example in healthcare, second application in healthcare that we will talk about is managing medical data. Again, this is another example of there are millions and millions of data available about patients. Now, there are some AI based robots which have made it easier to collect, store, and reformat this data so that the eventual reporting quality becomes better. Now, this is normally done by nurses, by manual human beings who collect all this data, and you generally have like a database with all this information. So these days they're trying to utilize AI-based robots to sort of like make it simpler or make it faster, make your overall quality better for this application. Next example is excuse me, early detection of diseases. Now, this is not 100% way that doctor have been utilizing, but there are some. You must be familiar with health trackers that we wear these days, like Apple Watch or Fitbit, or there are like many different brands available in India now. So you always check like the number of steps you walked or what your heart rate was or how many hours you slept. So it collects all this information. It stores all this information that your watch collects all the time, right? So generally, I have seen at least with my watch, it generally reminds you to like breathe, or it alerts you like, hey, your heart rate is increasing, even if it's not 100% correct, but it still sort of lets you be aware about your health in general. There was a very good example. I read about this a couple of years back. I don't remember from where, but there was this person who's, I think, his heartbeat was increasing a lot, and uh, the Apple Watch, I think, either it called 911, which is like the emergency services in US, or it just like uh, alerted him that he might be getting a heart attack, and he did get a heart attack after a couple of hours. So it's been like all these health trackers have been becoming way more intelligent now to like sort of monitor your overall health and give you like a certain prediction, which is probably not 100% correct, but at least it keeps you alert about your own health. There was also this another tracker that I read about, which is like about 98% accurate in predicting seizures in human beings. So, which is a step forward, I would say, like utilizing AI and machine learning. So, as I said, like the more amount of good data when available to in order to feed it to deep learning models, the better predicted outcomes you get. So, since in medicine, like you have enormous amount of data available that can be utilized for making stuff intelligent. So it's been a very useful case in healthcare. The next application that we are talking about is medical assistance. Uh, these days, I don't know like how many hospitals actually use this, but there are different virtual nursing assistants available for monitoring patients' conditions or follow up with treatments between doctor visits, like all the non important tasks that can be taken off a nurse's hands are currently being automated. Coming to a bit more into surgery, I don't know how many people are aware about this Da Vinci surgical robot. It's been around for a very, very long time now. So it is basically a four arm robotic surgical robot, basically, which, as you can see in this picture on the left, the doctor is looking at a 3D scan of from a sensor that's attached to the robot, so he can see from there and he can control those arms just by sitting on the side. So Da Vinci surgical robot is not actually replacing a surgeon, but it's actually giving a surgeon, it enables the surgeon to like be on a very comfortable position and look at a very high quality 3D scan image and make decisions and control. It gives some dexterity to the provider to like do certain movements that you can't do with human hands. So it pretty much like helps the surgeon to like translates the surgeon's hands movements to real time on the patient. So Da Vinci surgical robot has been there for a very long time now, and I'm pretty sure it's being used in many hospitals. This is a very good example of robotics. Another application is cancer research and treatment. Again, numerous scans are available for cancer patients. It's not a it's not something that's replacing doctors. AI can never, I do not think AI can ever replace doctors, but it does help doctors to make their analysis more accurately, make their analysis faster because of the availability of these intelligent deep learning models. So basically, it's utilized in a way that all the scan images of cancers at different stages are fed into all these deep learning models, and they sort of give a prediction of diagnosis and prognosis prediction. There are so many different deep learning models the different researchers are currently working on for this application. And one of the most important application of healthcare is drug discovery. I think majority of the companies in AI machine learning healthcare division are currently utilizing AI for drug discovery. So how is that useful? So generally, for generating a new drug, I read it somewhere that it takes on an average about 12 years to come from like a concept to an actual like product drug, which has gone through like clinical trials and everything to like finally become a drug that a human can eat. So it takes an average of 12 years to like complete the entire process. So how AI is becoming useful in this case is uh, when they are trying to predict through when they're trying to like try out different proteins and different molecules to figure out like what the composition of the drugs are. They have to go through a lot of options to do it. So there are like different AI deep learning models available which actually goes through like millions of these protein patterns and give them certain output, so that they do not have to like manually go through each of these. That's one good example I read recently, where the researchers are working with uh, pharmacists to basically make their life easy in drug discovery. Now, this is a very nice list by CB Insights, which shows all the hundreds of startups currently utilizing AI in healthcare. There are so many companies under different applications. We talked about wearables, we talked about virtual assistants, we talked about medical imaging, patient data, research, we talked about in-care and hospital management. So there are so many companies who are currently utilizing the latest technology in machine learning and deep learning in order to make healthcare better, in order to make it more available for people. And AI is estimated to contribute close to $15 trillion to the world economy by the year 2030. Again, this is a prediction. I thought I should mention it so that we can understand how important healthcare is and how important the utilization of machine learning and deep learning is in healthcare. Now, it's all great in AI, machine learning, deep learning. Like you have data, you train machines, and they perform as expected. But it doesn't happen that way 100% of the time. As I mentioned so many times, that good data is really important. So for providing good data, you need human beings to make good data that can be fed into machines, to train machines in order to make them intelligent. Now, making good data is really difficult, like labeling data in order to teach a machine, like that's a human job again. So you have to like label millions of data to like fit into a machine. That's a very, very, very difficult job, which never happens. I wouldn't say like 100% of the time it doesn't happen correctly. So there are robots which act weird. I have a small video to show everyone. You might have seen this in YouTube maybe, but there's a good example of when AI goes wrong, this is what happens. Robots act weird. This is actually a humanoid robotics challenge. It's called DARPA. It used to happen in United States before, where people like build these robots and they work with this humanoid robots and they teach certain applications based on the rules of the competitions. And you can see all these times robots took bad decisions. So as I said, that it's nice to make things intelligent, but I believe that in a perfect world, it's human intelligent plus machine intelligent is what's going to make things uh, perfect, or the most efficient way of running something. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha ma'am, for your excellent and really a valuable information from in your presentation. Now I ask students if you have any questions or queries, you may write in the chat box so that we can put it forward. Yes.
Excuse me.
Anyone? If you have any question, you raise your hand. Yes. Ma'am, one of the students had requested, can you please repeat reinforced learning?
Reinforce. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry.
No, it's okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Reinforcement learning is basically it's a mix of I would say, yeah. So in reinforcement learning, you are feeding in some data to a machine, and you let the machine decide some outcome, like whatever like the machine predicts, whatever decision it takes, and then you reward or punish the machine for taking that decision. You either give like a +1 or a -1 based on what decision you took. And now you take this back and feed it, like take this information back and feed it back to the machine again. Now the machine knows that if it takes the wrong decision, what the output will be, or if it takes the right decision, what the output will be. And so it takes like you're basically like clearing off, like you're teaching the machine not to take the wrong decisions. So you let the machine do it, you reward or you punish the machine based on what decisions it takes. Now you feed it back to the machine again. So that's reinforcement learning. Some examples, like reinforcement learning, mostly in robotics, it's reinforcement based learning, where you're teaching the robot to like not to make some wrong decisions through reward and punishment.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Then
Can AI replace software
yes,
engineers?
yes, yes.
I don't think so. As I mentioned, that AI needs a lot of good data in order to make good decisions, and humans can provide good data. In a ideal world, I would say AI plus human beings together will be the perfect combination, probably.
Okay.
Can ChatGPT replace developers over coming years? I don't think so. Uh, I so many people have asked me about this. I don't think so because again, like ChatGPT is intelligent, but I do not think it's ever going to be at the stage where it can replace human beings. Even now, like if you try to chat with ChatGPT, I think it's trained until like 2021 data, so it doesn't give you like 100% of out answers to all your questions. So I don't think like it's ever going to like replace all the software engineers. What type of languages and frameworks are used in machine learning? There are different frameworks available, like TensorFlow, or there's an old one, Cafe, PyTorch, which are available, which are pretty common that people use these days. Languages wise, people use Python, Rust, C++. How can we create or build AI like OpenAI and Dolly 2? So, in order to start with, I would suggest like there are different trained models available now. There are like researchers who train their models like on millions and millions of data that it can make certain kind of decisions. So you can start with a trained model. Generally, it's available like YOLO V5 or YOLO has like different versions or Mascar CNN. So there are like different trained models already available. You can start with that. Then you can change your weights based on like whatever your application is. You can create your own input data for it and play around. That will be a nice place to start with. Can we make an unsupervised learning robot like the movie
Like the
Terminator
movie
movie that would help us to explore other planets and solar
solar
system?
system.
That's a very very broad question. It's a very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's a very difficult task. um, can AI transform the accuracy and speed of diagnosis for most complex medical
Medical
conditions?
conditions.
Yes, at some point, as I said, the more data available, so the more data available, the better the AI models become. So over the years, you're going to get like more and more diagnosis data that's available that you can train your models with. So it's definitely a very good application where it's going to make diagnosis faster. It's never going to replace a doctor, human doctor, but it will enable them, help make their life easier by making good diagnosis.
Yes. What
What is
is
the
the
algorithm Instagram Reels and YouTube recommending content? I would say it's probably some kind of image processing algorithm that they're using. I mean, Facebook is never going to like make it public, but yeah, it's some kind of image processing that's happening. Why do we need artificial intelligence? We do not need artificial intelligence. It's nice to have. As I said, like since we have all this data available, so it's just people are just trying to utilize the data in a good way and come up with like more intelligent machines to make our life easy. Everything ends up being to reduce manual labor is why we need all kind of intelligence.
yes.
Can robots replace human race in future? I it's quite a possibility, but I don't think it will happen. There are certain examples you must have heard where
To make our life easy.
say Facebook, I think, came up with like some chat, AI chat that, and the chat started like interpreting each other's answers in certain way that humans couldn't understand. so they just shut it down. Like they didn't let AI to like reach that phase where we cannot understand. So I think researchers are very, very aware, whoever is like creating all these intelligent machines. Again, it's not impossible. There are bad people in this world as well who can create bad machines and bad AI, bad machine learning models. That's totally possible, but I think everyone is trying their best to ethically utilize AI and machine learning in the right way. Do you know Mid Journey AI, how it works? I am not familiar with Mid Journey. Sorry.
Ma'am, yes, I have one question. As we are from the Department of Chemistry,
Do you know Mid Journey AI,
how
how
we
it
can
works?
use
I am not
chemistry
familiar
in
with
all
Mid
these things?
Journey. Sorry.
AI, I know synthesis for synthesis and for detection of these reactions, means to increase the speed of the reactions, and it is there. But
Ma'am,
I think in
yes,
machine
I have
learning,
one
how it
question.
should be possible.
As we are from
How
the
it can be
Department
used.
of Chemistry,
Do you know
it
Mid
is
Journey
actually
AI,
How
how
we
it
can
works?
use
I am not
chemistry
familiar
in
with
all
Mid
these things.
Journey, where
Yes, yes.
so for all the different protein analysis and everything, they're trying to do it through deep learning models now,
Yes.
machine learning models. So you have like chemistry, you have so much data available already of like all the combination
Drugs. And all.
drugs those are
Yes.
available. So I know like there are so many companies, at least in MIT, I know of a research lab who are already like utilizing to that is how they utilized for actually coming up with vaccines for COVID. Like
Okay.
that's how it made it faster. Otherwise they have to like go through so many clinical trials and everything.
Yes, yes.
So they're using it in certain way to make certain part of research faster.
Yes, yes. Avoid some long processes also.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
no problem.
One more question is in there in the chat box.
Is there any disadvantage of AI in healthcare? Yeah, definitely. I mean, if AI taught wrong is bad. So, I mean, all these things, I would say it's a good combination of like researchers utilizing it for making it faster for humans or doctors. But I don't think AI is ever going to replace a doctor because no one is going to guarantee you 100% predicting AI model that's going to like diagnose some diseases. It's always going to be like 88 or 90% accurate in its diagnosis, which is not enough when it comes to detecting diseases for human beings. So I would say like probably doctors will eventually start using it to make things faster, but a human doctor is always going to be there.
Yes, yes. So coming to the end of the session.
Yeah.
So I would like to thank Ms. Diksha Swain for such a good, nice, excellent, and presentation, sharing her knowledge, and in a very simple way. She has given the information about the reinforcement learning, the relationship between AI, ML and deep learning, and in practice in our day-to-day life how we are using it, but you do not know the what is the things behind it, they are working, and everything about it. So a very good knowledge was shared by Diksha. So I am very happy today, and in a very short period you have accepted our invitation and enlightened our students. I am very thankful to you, ma'am. Then I would like to thank our HOD, Dr. Prajakta Waghe ma'am, for her cooperation in this in the organization of this event. I am also thankful to my colleagues, my all faculty members, and my dear students for patient learning and patient listening this session. And I am very thankful to all. And I am also thankful to the YCCE media group, uh, the students from our YCCA Media Center, Om and Kshitij, for their cooperation for this meeting, to arrange this meeting successfully. I am very thankful to all. So I request all the students to give their feedback, to submit their feedback on the link which is shared in the chat box. So I hope all of us have gained a very good knowledge, lot of information about this, about our topic. So very thankful. I am very thankful to all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Diksha ma'am.
Thank
Very
you so much.
informative session.
It
Yes,
was
I
very informative, and your presentation was so nice.
Right.
In a simple way, you have
Simple way you explain. Yes.
explain everything. So I think in future also we will
Yes.
will have your lecture. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So with this, with the permission of the chair, I announce the session is over. Thanks to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.